Hi there BookTube, and welcome to another tag. This is Josh's canned food books tag, originated by Josh, who does a lot of these food themed tags, but I was actually tagged in by Todd, the Librarian, so thanks for that, Todd. And away we go. 1. Fruit, a work that makes you think about being in a school. Well, I'm not sure if this is thinking about being in a school in a good way or a bad way, so I'll offer one up for either. Thinking of being in school in a bad way is Jane Austen's Emma, because I studied that for A-level English literature and hated it. And the whole class thought we were all going to fail because in England for your A-levels it's 2 years of school. And we had a new teacher in the second year who had to repair all the damage of a completely useless teacher in year one, and we all thought we were going to fail, but he got us through it, thank goodness. But they were horrible, horrible times. And in a good way is Albert Camus' The Plague, because I only really started reading when I was sort of 14, 15, and I read in school because we had a strange sort of optional subject called Use of English, which basically the teacher who ran the class, I think there was only 4 of us in it, in theory they used to teach this thing called Use of English. But at my school, when I was attending, it was just an excuse for us to get on and do our homework or do whatever we wanted, as long as we were well behaved, and the teacher got on with whatever he was doing. So I'd got Albert Camus' The Plague out of the library, and I read it during those lessons, and it was great. Question 2. Vegetables, your favourite thing to buy in a mass market paperback? Well, I'm sorry, I can't think of a single thing, and it kind of lives up to the name of tinned vegetables, because who'd eat vegetables out of a tin? You know, any nourishment in the vegetables in their original life just sort of bleeds into the metal. So I really can't answer this question, sorry, but I just found that an appropriate metaphor for mass market paperbacks, he said with a twinkle. Question 3. Soup, a work that is packed with tropes. Okay, well, Franz Kafka's short stories are packed with tropes. Many of them take the form of parables. There is a lot about God and religion in them. There's Freud in quite a few of them. There's absurdism in quite a few of them. There's moral justice in many of them. There's, as you know, the madness of sort of bureaucracy, unseen bureaucracy. But there's also anthropomorphism in them, in that a lot of his stories are animals with sort of human feelings and perceptions and stuff. So there are many, many tropes, but he's the supreme short story writer. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of him. I read his complete short stories last year and I'd read a lot of the individual stories before, but having them all brought together was just so rewarding. Question 4. Baked beans, a work that has at least 2 legitimate approaches. So I wasn't sure about this one, whether it was the reader has 2 legitimate ways of interpreting a book, or the book deliberately uses 2 different narrative techniques or forms in it. So going with that one first, so if the writer has employed 2 different narrative forms and styles, I go with Murakami's Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World, where these 2 seemingly unrelated narratives. One is a sort of dystopia, end of the world tale, and the other is a sort of hard-boiled detective fiction. They don't seem to share anything at all until the brilliant way that he brings them together at the end. And if it's a book that has more than one legitimate interpretation for readers, it has to be House of Leaves, and I've talked about this before, where to me it was a sort of fantastic experimental formalist book, whereas for other readers it was purely a horror genre book, and it can legitimately be both, even though I never for one moment imagined it as a horror genre. But you know, when I saw people talking about it in those terms, I thought, yeah, that's a perfectly legitimate response. 5. Soda. When you're hot, what work makes you feel cold and refreshed? A book that refreshes suggests that I keep rereading it, and I don't really do that. So I'm just going to have to sort of play fast and loose with this, and I could either fix on frothy and fizzy, or the notion of being cold. So if we're frothy and fizzy, we're talking Nicholson Baker's The Fermata, which is a naughty, sexy book where basically this guy discovers a power that when he takes his glasses off, he freezes time for everyone else around him, but he's free to move around in it. And what does he do with the gift? Well, he sort of peeks down women's frontages. So that was fairly frothy. And cold, well, any of Carol O'Connell's Cathy Malloy detective series, because she is a strange fish. She was damaged as a child, but she is very cold, but a very, very fine brain, and that's used to solve all the crimes. Question 6, coffee, a handy book. Well, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy seems to be a very useful tome to have on you, although I rarely leave the confines of North London these days, so I don't need it. 7, Tomato Puree, a great work that uses a lot of description. Well, any classic of the Victorian canon would apply to that, so take your pick. 8, Tuna, a work with a familiar adaptation you feel people must read. I don't ever feel people must read anything. Let them come to their own conclusions. I might recommend something, but I don't feel you have to read this or we can't be friends. And anyone who watched my reasons why I don't watch adaptations of books into movies will know I don't dig adaptations. Although I did think the film of A Clockwork Orange was quite good, even though they changed the ending to the polar opposite. But, that's okay. It's a different work from the book. Question 9, bread, the most pretentious work you have read. I don't understand why bread is associated with pretentiousness, because, bread was the staple food for the sort of rural poor throughout history. And, let them eat cake, which meant let them eat bread, as Marie Antoinette, in her complete sort of removal from reality, cast upon the revolting poor, as it were. But anyway, onto the concept of pretentious. Well, a lot of the books I like, other people would see as pretentious. So no book can be too pretentious for me. I may not like it, but my criticism of it won't be that it's too pretentious. So I honestly can't answer that question. 10, Broth, a work you refer to time and again. Well, it used to be Roger's Thesaurus when I write, but now all that shit's online, so I don't have to refer to it. It's you don't even have to leave your screen to refer to it. 11, Spam, a work of popular fiction you would endlessly encourage people to read. Well, if I was endlessly encouraging people to read, I wouldn't have any time to read myself, so that doesn't work. But I'm going to suggest Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, because that is endless. In that Vladimir and Estragon have to wait endlessly for Godot, who never appears. Is it? What was it? Is it? Popular fiction. Well, first of all, it's a play, so technically it's not a novel. Popular. Well, I think it was popular. I don't know if it's still as popular, but for me, that's the only way I can answer that question. 12, Chef Boyardee, which I don't know what that is, but anyway, a character you feel tries to be someone they are not. Well, as characters are fictional, the question is the character generally trying to be someone they're not, or is it the authors trying to make them someone they're not? But that aside, it's John Milton's Satan in Paradise Lost, particularly in books 1 and 2, where he sort of has the most text time, as it were, because Milton makes him heroic, and yet Milton's message is very much for sort of Christ and Christianity. So it's an interesting sort of tension that he sets up there. I think he did it deliberately. He had to make Satan attractive enough to make his threat to Christ and the Redeemer and the Messiah and all that credible. But is Satan actually trying to be something he's not? Well, yes, I suppose he is, because like any tragic, flawed hero, he's trying to be top divinity, and he can never be that. He can never be allowed to be that. I still don't know what Chef Boyardee is. 13, SpaghettiOs, an addictive children's book or series you enjoy reading as an adult. Nope, I do not read children's books now that I'm an adult. I'm sorry. The Story of SpaghettiO, now that would be a book, but probably not one for children. I did a couple of years ago buy the complete set of Little Miss and Mr. Men books for a young relative, and they've been a big hit, I'm told. So, I guess I gauged that one right. When I was a kid, I mainly read the Tintin and Asterix books, and they were very fine as a kid, but I wouldn't read them now. Okay, question 14. Manwich, a book that does more with its summary than with its content. Well, I think this probably means a summary on the back, but I'm actually going to do a summary within the pages that the author himself wrote, which I've just recently finished, Frankenstein in Baghdad, which is by an Iraqi writer, where it's a brilliant concept of a Frankenstein monster made up of all the sort of body parts blown apart by high explosive, be it suicide bombers or American dropped munitions, and it sort of goes ravaging it, looking to have vengeance on the people responsible for the death of the body parts that make it up. But there's a scene in it about a third of the way through where the monster is interviewing itself on a tape recorder at the request of a journalist. And the heart of the book and the heart of the monster's sort of motivations and conflicts are in that one interview. And it kind of makes the rest of the book redundant, really. So that was kind of a bit odd. 15. What is your favourite kind of canned food? None. I mean, food shouldn't be in cans. I used to eat tin pineapple when I was younger, but now I prefer fresh pineapple. And lastly, canned food drive. Who do you tag? Well, I'm going to tag Dane at Dane Reads. I'm going to tag Curtis at Curtis Film and Books. I'm going to tag Beth at Beth Chats Books. And I'm going to tag Michael at Catalyst Reads. Guys, look into the back of your larders and see what canned food you've got and see what bookish illusions it stirs up in you. Okay, thanks very much, Todd. I hope that lived up or down to your expectations. I did find this tricky because I really don't dig canned food. So I really had to dig deep and think. Okay, till next time. Bye.